Dennis Allen's fired. Who's going to be the next fired coach, and who are the hot name candidates that are going to be the next wave of head coaches in the NFL? We're going to break it all down for you here today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase.
Joe, happy trade deadline day to you here on Locked On NFL Scouting. And as we just mentioned in the pre-show, everybody's probably really interested in the trade deadline stuff, but we don't want to do a show and then it be obsolete by some trade that happens 5 minutes after we're done. So instead, we're going to do the trade deadline recap tomorrow. And instead, we're focused on the NFL coaches cycle, which has begun to kind of emerge as far as what the vacancies are going to be. We have multiple head coaches that have been relieved of their duties. So we're looking at up-coaching candidates, next fired coach, looking a little bit more about this New Orleans Saints situation, which I have a lot of thoughts on beyond the knee-jerk reaction that we gave at the end of the show yesterday. So we're going to start with Dennis Allen. Saints job's open. And the question I have for you is on a scale of 1 to 10, how attractive would the New Orleans Saints head coaching job be for you?
Oh, boy. On a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah,
it's low. It's very, very low. Now, the one thing it has going for it is that it is one of the 32 NFL head coaching jobs that exist. And I think the Saints have been a team that's been loyal throughout their history, which I think helps. And I think it comes with an understanding, or it should come with an understanding, that we got some work to do to get our roster right and be able to be positioned to actually compete. So there's a lot of work to be done here. But yeah, I have a lot of concerns about them being able to get really attractive candidates to take this job, especially because we already know the Jets job's open. We know more are coming. This is probably not going to be a real attractive spot.
Did you read the statement from the Saints?
Oh, I did.
I did. And you have any takeaways from that?
My takeaway is, why did I have to read anything from Mickey Loomis? Because, I mean, we certainly agree on this. Dennis Allen's a problem, right? We can sit here and clown Dennis Allen for his .329 career win-loss percentage, 16th worst in the NFL history amongst coaches that have coached at least 50 games. Weird hire. They probably should have done this already. Like, Loomis is every bit of the problem Dennis Allen is.
I would argue Mickey Loomis is more complicit in the current state of affairs of the New Orleans Saints than Dennis Allen is.
Right, and that's at the risk of defending Dennis Allen, who I don't.
We haven't been fans of the resume there, and that's fine. But what's the root of the problem? The root of the problem is the way you've run the organization the last
100%, right.
So Saints executive vice president and general manager Mickey Loomis offers his statement that Dennis Allen is an excellent football coach. This season we had an avalanche of injuries. It took its toll. Dennis has never offered excuses. He fought every day for this organization, this team that is what makes today disappointing. Dennis has been an integral part of this organization for the better part of 20 years. He will be missed. Okay, that's a statement. Okay, that's a totally fine statement. But if the team releases their statement on the firing of the coach and Dennis Allen gets his little paragraph in there, I have my questions on if Mickey Loomis is going to be here long term. Like, I think it's a bigger chance that Mickey Loomis continues to hold his role into the future than what a lot of people assume, just based on the fact that they fired their coach and they're not good this year. And if that's the case, you're coming in as a coach to work under. You've seen what it looks like, and you know how deep the hole is dug. What faith can you possibly have just to be compliant against the cap? They have to continue to do this until players weed themselves out by stopping to play or players agreeing to take pay cuts. Nobody's going to do that. So, with the work that needs to be done, the amount of depth that's required, I think that the infusion of draft capital, I hope Mickey is, if the Saints don't find an excuse to sell somebody today, then it makes me really wonder, okay, now we're going into the offseason. What assets do we have? What's the vision for the offseason? If I'm a coach interviewing for the job, I'm like, tell me why I'm not going to come in here and the exact same circumstances that have been the case are going to continue to be the case. And I got to try and coach the team with two hands tied behind my back because we can't afford to add depth to the team and don't have the resources to add more young talent to the team. It's equivalent to the post Bill O'Brien Texans.
Right.
When he traded draft classes for Laramie Tunsil.
But at
gave
least
away their other assets for nothing.
Didn't they hire a GM, though? They hired Brian Gain for a couple of years before they were able to kind of stabilize with Caserio and D'Amico Ryans.
Right, but I mean, like the next 3-year outlook for the Saints will look very eerily similar to the 3-win football teams that felt at times like it was a miracle that they won 3 football games.
You're looking at a David Culley, Jim Tomsula type hire here. That's
right.
A guy that's going to be hired to be fired. But again, I don't think any of it matters, Kyle, if Mickey Loomis is still in control of this roster.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just it flies so much in the face of good team building process. And
is this why it's just going to be Darren Rizzi's job? Longtime special teams coordinator. I mean, he's been trying to get a head coaching job for years. He was with the Dolphins for almost 10 years as a really good special teams coordinator. He goes to New Orleans. It sounds like he's the interim head coach. He's just going to take over, and they're going to say, well, we had an avalanche of injuries, and we're going to keep Mickey on board, and Darren did a nice job amidst the injuries for us, so we're just going to give the job to Darren Rizzi.
He very much could be that coach that is a stopgap to get through it. But again, I don't think anything matters with the New Orleans Saints until Mickey Loomis is no longer their general manager. They need a modern vision for how to run the roster, how to manage their salary cap, how to run a draft room. The guy doesn't trade back. He said he doesn't trade back.
Right.
Because he doesn't want to admit that he's taking a lesser player. What are we talking about? I mean, the extensions are goofy. The fact that they, within the last couple of weeks, they've extended Alvin Kamara and fired Dennis Allen. You tell me if Mickey Loomis is going to stick around or not.
Like it felt like this was the first time in like 2 years where like Kamara's felt like, didn't he request a trade at one point and you just knew that it wasn't really feasible, and he's kind of, I don't want to say regressed, but like he's not prime Alvin Kamara anymore, right? And you were like, oh, this is finally the year you can like eject that contract and save a meaningful lot of money. And they were like, nope, we're going to extend him and save $300,000 more and make it hard to get out of the deal for another 3 years for a running back that's getting ready to turn 30.
Bad business. It's bad business, man. Bad. And I Gal Benson, for whatever reason, obviously there's a lot. I mean, Mickey Loomis has been there a long time.
He has.
I'm sure there's a great relationship. But if the Saints want to be a serious operation at some point in the next 3 to 5 years, you need a new decision maker for this roster. So the fact that Dennis Allen, fire him, sure, great, needed to be done. But the fact that we have nothing but fear that Mickey Loomis is going to stick around says it's all for nothing.
Well, that'll give you a great idea of what the potential hiring process will be for like New Orleans. I imagine that will be a very challenging job because of the amount of work that has to be done, unless they start from scratch and everybody has an understanding of long-term contracts and we're all coming in this together like Detroit did.
Yeah. Right.
So there you go.
All right. We've got 2 coaches fired already, Robert Saleh, Dennis Allen. On the next segment, we're going to talk about who the next coach to be fired in season will be. Folks, be sure to stick with us. There's nothing like being at the game, watching your favorite team play, watching your favorite quarterback play. Kyle and I had some fun a couple years ago. We went to Miami. We saw Tua versus Lamar Jackson on Thursday Night Football. Chris Schubert was there.
Hey, don't forget Jacoby Brissett played in that game too now.
We pour one out for Jacoby Brissett. Fun time. Some of the best memories I've ever had. You got to get to the stadium and watch these games. And if you want to do that, you got to get the Game Time app. Game Time is the fast and easy way to purchase tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. The app is awesome, man. You download this thing. They give you flash deals. They give you a picture from your seat. They send the ticket straight to your phone, so you have to dig through emails to find it. They give you your best price guarantee. Plus, they specialize in last-minute tickets. So check it out. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5. You get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I love the live in-game betting. You can look and pick, like, on the next drive for a team, is this player going to catch a pass? What's the result of the drive going to be? It's been really fun. It just makes the games even more exciting. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Timeout on the show. We're still recording. I'm not like pausing as the
yeah.
We're rolling here.
Appreciate that.
Did you see who was at the game last night in Kansas City?
About 75,000 people.
Do you see who met Creed Humphrey?
No, I had no idea.
Members of the band Creed.
Oh, was it Scott Stapp?
Scott Stapp and Mark Tremonti, who's a guitarist.
Man.
Took a picture with Creed Humphrey down on the field.
What a moment.
And Creed meet Creed was the caption from the Chiefs. I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking. Speaking of being 6 feet from the edge,
with arms wide open. Okay.
Speaking of arms wide open, I had another timeout thing here. Yeah. Who do you think Jerry Jones is talking about when he just told reporters they're adding a receiver today before the trade deadline for a player they're adding a receiver today before the trade deadline that they've admired since his college days?
All right.
Who is he talking about?
Arkansas, Texas A&M.
It's like, is it a free agent? Is it conveniently a free agent that he just mentioned before the trade deadline?
Is it Mike Williams?
So Mike Williams is out there. He played at Clemson. Also out there at Clemson, wide receiver is Hunter Renfrow. It's a free agent.
Yes, Hunter Renfrow.
You have Mike Thomas.
Ooh.
Ohio State. Dak going on IR today is they're not having a very good time.
Right, not a very good time. Yeah.
I wonder, do you think the Dolphins should trade Odell?
They should, yeah.
They're getting River Craycraft back. Malik Washington is a rookie player. Is getting some nice snaps.
If that doesn't sum up Odell Beckham Jr. right now, that we're saying, well, River Craycraft's coming back and a day 3 pick in Malik Washington has a pulse. Let's get Odell out of here.
And I'll be fair to Odell. He's ran routes and been open more than he's got the ball. But at the same time, he had that nice catch on that slant route.
Oh, it's Treylon Burks, Kyle Krabs. That's who's calling.
Oh, I bet it is
Treylon Burks, Arkansas. Finally clicked in my head.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's good. It's Treylon Burks.
But I just saw that come through, and I said, a little sleuthing. Maybe we could solve the mystery.
It's a good segue into our conversation in this segment, which is centered around the next in-season firing. And I'll spoiler, I don't think Mike McCarthy gets fired in season. I think he plays out, his contract ends at the end of the season. I think they say thanks for everything.
Coach next year.
Yeah, he won't get fired in season. No, I don't think so at all. Well, that's not what we're here to answer. Who is going to be the next in-season firing? Kyle, I got a list of the highest odds for the next in-season firing.
I'm all ears.
The number one commanding lead. Dougie P.
Doug P.
Are we surprised it hasn't happened already?
No, because they won a couple games there, and then like they did play hard and make that a game against Philly. I think if they would have got waxed against Philly, like Philly was up big. How about that hurdle from Saquon? We didn't talk about that.
Yeah,
play.
that was nice. Yeah. I'm a little jealous because I like a certain hurdle reel that already exists, but it's like, man, yeah,
you got to tip your cap to that one,
good.
right?
That was a good one, yeah. So, like, Dougie P, congratulations. You're going to get smoked by the Vikings and the Lions the next 2 weeks. You get fired in the bye week.
Are they going to get smoked? I think he'll get fired at the bye, and they'll get smoked in Detroit for sure.
They're losing these next two for sure.
Are they?
Minnesota, Flores against Trevor Lawrence in this offense. Are you kidding me?
I understand the offense. Flores is going to coach circles around him, but like Minnesota, just offensively, were a little shaky the last couple weeks. 3 turnovers last week against the Colts. Darnold had some silly stuff.
We have the Cowboys. We have the answer to the Cowboys trade. It's Jonathan Mingo. Jonathan Mingo to the Cowboys.
Woohoo.
Mingo at a 7 for a 4.
Jerry, what did he do?
Mingo and a 7 for a 4.
They got a 4 for Jonathan Mingo.
A 4. They've admired him since his college days.
Clearly admired him. You overpaid by him by about 2 rounds.
Carol, we can't do tomorrow's show yet, but wow.
Oh my dude.
How?
And Dak Prescott's on IR. What does this do for you?
Well, 2 years on a rookie deal, right? I guess.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Who's next after Doug? I think
Dougie P's getting smoked the next 2 weeks.
Doug gets fired on November 18th.
Okay. I would agree that he's the next in-season fired coach. I think that's probably makes sense. The next highest odds, Gerard Mayo. I don't think that's going to happen. Robert Kraft's going to at least see that through a little bit more. Mike McCarthy, we already said that's not going to happen. The next highest odds, Brian Daboll. They've already said he's good. He's safe. He's sticking around.
Who's after this? Because the
Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen's next.
Probably not. They're rolling with Flacco. They're going to try and make it work.
They said for the season.
For the season, yeah.
Yeah.
That might be it. If those are the best odds, because dude, if you're putting odds on, never say never, but if you're putting odds on anybody that's not Doug, it's not as bad as betting on Quinn Ewers to be the number 1 pick back in July, like we talked about.
Sneak it in, Kyle. Get it in.
But,
get the jabs in, baby.
They were stealing money from you then. I told you to call the gaming commission. They're stealing your money if you're betting on Quinn Ewers to go number 1. And look at us now. So don't bet money on Brian Daboll to be the next coach fired. Although they do play at Carolina.
Hey, Panthers is getting coaches fired.
And then they have their bye week. I'm just saying, maybe I take it back.
In Munich, in Germany, right? That's
yes, it's the 9:30 kick. Thank goodness they're back.
Hey, congrats to the Europeans. What a game you get to watch. I think some of the names that are coming up on this list are a little more attractive. So Shane Steichen, I don't think he gets fired. But how about Matt Eberflus? I mean
they're 4-4, so I think things have to get.
But just like a young team like that with a coach that has nothing dynamic about him and Matt Eberflus, like
and DJ Moore, they asked, did Eberflus lose the locker room? I think his answer on the radio was, I want to say no. But like the vibes have been bad. There was a whole issue with accountability in the way that they talked to Tyreek Stevenson about his accountability, but then like the coaching and the coaching staff, and they had a players only meeting about opening up the offense already. Like there have been some bad vibes out of Chicago.
And Khalil Herbert was tweeting pretty happy to get the heck out of there and go to the Bengals.
Right.
Todd Bowles. I don't think so in season, right?
I don't think so in season, no.
Kevin Stefanski.
And if the Browns hold Stefanski responsible for the way that this season has unfolded, I think he would be a very popular candidate.
No doubt.
So
Which
I
is-
would not hold it against Stefanski.
Then the next, I think this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Ninth highest odd, Mike McDaniel. No, right?
Probably not. I mean, if they continue to get absolutely falling off the rails defensively and they regress offensively, but I mean, the offense has got back on track. They've lost in the final 5 seconds of the last 2 games that they played because they're so hurt defensively. So I think if they play the way that they played the last 2 weeks, it'll be very easy to look at and say, we're missing half of our starting defense. And then when you get to the end of the year, you're going to look at the roster construction and there will probably be somebody that's held accountable. I don't know that's going to be Mike McDaniel.
You think so? I know that Dave Canales, I think, would be unlikely that he's fired in season.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, Bryce has played a little better the last couple opportunities. Do you think Dave Canales has got to get a second season, right? Or at least start a second season?
I think it would be a horrible process to not give him a second season. They have technically had Canales is the 5th head coach since the start of the 2022 season for the Carolina Panthers.
So I think we both agree that the only other in-season firing, which feels crazy with half the year left to go, is Doug. I'd be a little surprised if anyone else was let go during the season.
Where's Antonio Pierce on there? Is he on there at all?
Not on there. Not amongst the top 9.
I mean, Antonio Pierce fired 3 offensive coaches without knowing who was going to replace them going into the bye.
We'll see what minority owner Tom Brady has to say about that.
I think they're looking at like Scott and Norv Turner to come in. Just feels like that's going to be a disaster. You're going to bring guys from not even in the building in to you're going to Jeff Saturday it with your offensive coaching staff.
Boy, that'd be weird. That'd be weird. Be weird.
And I think you and I both had like an appetite for Antonio in the offseason, but the way that they handled like the coaching staff hiring,
bad.
The staff handling has been atrocious.
Yeah.
I think Antonio Pierce should have better odds than quite a few names that were on the list that you actually gave. Because this season's not going to get any. They've benched quarterbacks twice. They've benched Gardner Minshew twice for 2 different quarterbacks.
And Desmond Ridder most recently. Well, Kyle, part of firing your head coach is getting a new one. You should think that you can get a better one. So on the other side of it, we're talking about the candidates that are going to be taking these jobs. Of course, the Jets and the Saints, but all the other teams. Stick with us. Folks, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. And I'll tell you what, I couldn't be more thankful for my wife. She's incredible. Does so much for our family. Very loving, very devoted to me and our kids. And this month is all about gratitude. And there's another person we don't get to thank enough, and that's ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we are trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that isn't always easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. And therapy is very helpful. Therapy is helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It's not just for people who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire. That'll get you matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. All
right. You have a list again.
I got a list. A lot of names. These are the hottest names to be head coaches.
Now, for the layperson, can you provide name, current team, current position?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I got you. Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator, Detroit Lions.
I hope you have a great you are selling yourself to Ben Johnson more than Ben Johnson is selling himself to you.
100%.
So I hope you have a great situation to sell to a would-be head coach, whether that's a team with an early draft pick or a team that has a young quarterback that has shown good stuff on tape or a lot of assets or a good location or preferably all of the above. Because I think that's the only way you pry Ben Johnson out of Dan Campbell's hands.
Yeah, and here's my thought with Ben Johnson. I love the offense, but I get very nervous about taking him away and thinking that you're going to replicate the Lions. Because we know that Ben Johnson, like in his heart, I don't think he wants to be a head coach. I think he's very satisfied just being the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. And so head coaches, man, it's conflict, it's adversity all the time. And when that's not really what you want to do, man, I don't know. I get nervous about the Ben Johnson idea. Todd Monken, offensive coordinator, Baltimore Ravens.
They do a lot of really good scheme stuff. And Todd's kind of been around the block. I think from an experience standpoint, he's somebody that I think deserves to be a hot name for what they did to diversify their passing offense versus what it was with Greg Roman. I would be very surprised if he doesn't get multiple interviews, because I think he's be well deserving of them.
The thing that I don't know enough about Todd Monken is like what type of a leader he is, what type of charisma he has. I like his scheme. I just admittedly I don't know much about that piece of him.
I like his presence on press conferences. He seems to be very matter of fact. Gotcha. Like no BS. We'll kind of tell you how it is from how I've interpreted Todd.
Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator, Detroit Lions.
I think if you were going to tell me you had a coach from the Detroit staff that had a better chance of replicating the culture of the Detroit staff,
you got it.
It's Aaron Glenn. I love Aaron Glenn. Yeah. I think he has a chance to be a really great CEO type of coach that handles that adversity element that you talk about. And that's what I think Detroit is doing so well beyond the construction of the team and the way that they collected assets to build the roster up. It's the culture of the football team and the types of players that they want and how they treat their players and how they talk to their players and how they empower their play. Like that's such a big piece of their successful puzzle. And Glenn's a huge part of that.
Yep.
So I'm all for Aaron Glenn. Like he might be my favorite candidate of the coaching cycle.
We see this similarly. I didn't know that you were going to have the same fire that I did, but I'm right there with you. If I wanted a piece of the Detroit Lions and I can't have Dan Campbell, I want Aaron Glenn. Wes Phillips, offensive coordinator, Minnesota Vikings.
I admittedly don't know a ton about Wes, having not done like research on him in particular, but I do know I always get leery about taking ancillary parts of good operations elsewhere.
Yeah.
And, Kwesi does a great job from a front office standpoint. Kevin O'Connell has had a lot of really productive offensive play, but you have the best wide receiver in the game in Justin Jefferson there. Kevin O'Connell, obviously his hand in the offensive play calling, the offensive scheme. It's like just tapping into my team has done this far too often of taking Joe Philbin from Green Bay and bringing it to Miami and say, we're going to do the Green Bay Packers offense thing. And I would, without knowing enough about Wes, I don't know how to feel about him and what part of the puzzle he is for Minnesota and who they are as a football team.
Mike Vrabel, free agent, former head coach of the Titans.
Yes, I know he has his flaws, but he is somebody who I really respect, like the brand of football that he stood for playing. And I know how you feel about John Robinson.
Oh, I'd like to see Vrabel without Robinson. Yeah. Very much. Yeah.
Right. Vrabel is a player's coach who's tough on players, but still has he's probably the closest thing that we had to Dan Campbell before Dan Campbell. I don't think he's as charismatic or as bubbly as Dan Campbell.
Or as aggressive
as Dan Campbell. But he knew all the margins. That was my favorite thing about Mike Vrabel. The rule book, the ins and outs, the loopholes, all of the strategic thing, like all of the management of the game margins that you could know in very hyper-specific situational football moments. That was where Mike Vrabel was really good. And he's had success hiring off of wide zone coaching staffs, which I know is all the rage. He hired Matt LaFleur.
Yeah.
And that was his offensive coordinator. And then Arthur Smith got him a head coaching job. So I think he's shown an ability to put good staffs together. I think he's a very strong candidate and should be a head coach next year.
Three most important things in an organization: a GM, a head coach, and a quarterback. And I don't think Mike Vrabel ever had a quarterback or a GM. Bobby Slowick, offensive coordinator, Houston Texans.
Might be a little too early for Bobby.
I agree.
They do good stuff. He's obviously off of the he's one of the branches off the popular offensive tree that is hyper populating the league, but the whole league, it felt like the whole league's defensive staffs had spent the offseason brainstorming about new challenges to present to some of these offenses. Yeah. And well, Houston's kind of been herky-jerky at times. So I think Bobby needs to continue to get more experience and stack on what he does well and get more exposures, and then you can have that conversation.
The guy currently with the highest odds to be the next Saints coach, Joe Brady, offensive coordinator, Buffalo Bills.
He's done a great job in Buffalo, right? The word that comes to mind for me and I'd be interested. I know we've had some conversations about what the Bills' offenses look like with Joe Brady, but balance is the thing that stands out to me that they do really, really well with Joe Brady.
I think Joe Brady's got Josh Allen to play the most mature quarterback of his career. And I think the Bills might be the best zone rushing offense in the league right now. In terms of success rate, they're top 3. Their zone rushing offense has been very, very good. We'll see. I mean,
and they have that success with Cyrus Torrence is not like a great zone fit,
right?
You know,
right?
And you think about Deion Dawkins is such an unorthodox tackle. It's always worked for him, but
plays the game weird. Yeah,
it's not like they have these prototype oh yeah, let's go out get zone offense, blocking offensive line. Like they kind of evolved over the course of collecting talent. And the fact that it's still clear, I think it's a testament to Aaron Kromer. I think it's a testament to Joe Brady. But they, as you said, the success rate and what they're able to do and the balance they have is outstanding.
Head coach, though? He's 35 years old. I mean,
he's kind
had
of
interviews.
He's kind of been through it a little bit, right? Like,
no doubt.
He was the red herring in Carolina, one of their 18 other reasons that things didn't go wrong other than the guy running the show over there. Where'd he go after Carolina? Didn't he go somewhere else first and then go to Buffalo?
No, he was
went
the
straight to
Bill. He was
Buffalo?
the Bills quarterbacks coch. He was the quarterbacks coach for 3 years before becoming the offense coordinator. So
Got it.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think a prodigy like that, he's going to get a crack at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't come off the heels of, well, we got rid of Stephon Diggs. We're balanced offensively. We officiate or create more efficiency and streamline Josh Allen's quarterback play. I don't think that's going to get lost on a lot of people. I would not be surprised if he gets a head coaching job.
I wouldn't either. Bill Belichick, he's an analyst.
Coworker.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Your coworker. What?
30-13.
I don't know why you out him here, but
let me work. I just selfishly want to work with Bill, so just don't hire him.
This is the challenge with Bill. He would be very specific place where he could go. Where is it? It's not the Saints. Is it the Jets? Is he going to go to the Jets? No, he's already.
No, he hates the Jets.
He can't go to the Jets,
dude. And I know you've been big on like Bill and his content.
I love him.
Every time I catch Bill Belichick content, he is throwing some kind of jab at the Jets.
Dude, he's so good. I want every piece of Bill Belichick content I get. I don't know the spot. Jacksonville feels like the spot to me.
Jacksonville would be a spot where they would hand over the keys for everything.
Right.
What about the Giants?
He ain't going to Dallas, Kyle.
What about
He's not going to Dallas.
If they fire Dable? Because I think Joe Schoen is very complicit in the current state of affairs over there. He obviously coached in New York as a defensive coordinator.
I could see the
Giants. I think the Giants or the Jaguars are the two spots where I could see Bill landing.
Brian Flores, defense coordinator, Minnesota Vikings.
I think he's got a great chance, having been with Wes Phillips and Kevin O'Connell, and then stop in Pittsburgh. He had to diversify his coaching context to build a staff because they were tapped out offensively.
Jesse Minter, defensive coordinator, Los Angeles Chargers. Too soon.
But man, he's coaching his rear end off.
Unbelievable. Cliff Kingsbury, OC Commanders.
I'm trying to think if there's a quarterback in this year's class, because that's why you would hire Cliff. Say what you will about Cliff. I thought Cliff optimized an offense for Kyler Murray, especially early stage Kyler Murray, quite well.
And it's obviously Commander situation is looking really good. Right. I might want another year for him to be coaching as a coordinator, but I think he's going to get another
I think it's enough coaching experience that if you had the right fit, you could justify it.
Vance Joseph, defensive coordinator, Denver Broncos. No. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm trying to think of what quarterback I would want.
Well, it's Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, Garrett Nussmeier. Who else?
I don't think I guess maybe Cam, but then I feel like you're putting Cam in a box if you put him with Cliff. I think Cam can handle more. I don't think
maybe it's the best thing for him though.
Might be Jalen Milroe.
Don't do that to Cliff, man.
Milroe's got really exciting talent. I think Cliff's offense could accelerate him as a passer.
Vance Joseph, DC, Denver Broncos. It's hard not to love what he's doing with that Denver defense, man.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. And it's I know it's taken a while because he's been very well regarded, and they've had some bad personnel groups, and now he has some good personnel groups. So he's had a chance to pick some guys and bring in there, and it's paying dividends for him.
Feels like a Saints hire right here, doesn't it?
No.
You don't agree with that?
No. If I'm Vance, why would I go play? Why would I go coach the Saints?
Because you get to be a head coach. He's be a head coach.
He's still young. Take your time.
You think it's a matter of time he gets another shot?
If I'm Vance Joseph and what's her name? Virginia Benson?
Gail
Benson? I'm mixing Virginia McCaskey, right? As the Bears.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. If Gail Benson calls me and I'm Vance Joseph, I'm immediately hanging on. I'm
You gotta like some of these like the Dan Quinns, the who's the other defensive coach that got another chance?
I'm saying if I'm Vance Joseph, I want no part of the Saints.
So you think a better shot's coming for Vance Joseph? He continues this up in Denver. Okay. Yes. Liam Cohen, Bucks OC.
Too soon, probably, but he's
hopefully
doing a nice
just becomes the Bucks head coach. You replace Todd Bowles.
Right.
Adam Stanovich, Green Bay offensive line coach and now offensive coordinator.
I like Stanovich.
Yeah,
I do like him. I don't think he'd be particularly high on the list just because, again, his impact beyond just the offensive line coaching is still kind of new with LaFleur, obviously, and the hand that he has in the offense.
3 more for you. This one should be quick. Kellen Moore, OC Dallas Cowboys.
I think he needs more time to kind of rehab how things ended in Dallas, to be honest, and then the 1-year stop with the Chargers.
Chargers, right? I agree. Drew Petzig, offensive coordinator, Arizona Cardinals.
Do some really fun stuff in the run game.
He does.
I think it's probably a little too soon. I would want to, if I was him, I would want to stay there and have them continue to stack talent and put together a better resume before I look to leave.
This is one of my sleepers. I don't know. Maybe he's not a sleeper. Aubrey Pleasant, the Rams assistant head coach, passing game coordinator, was the defensive side of the ball previously. 11 years, man. I kind of like this guy.
Yeah. Former player, right?
Was he? I feel like I should know that. Here we are. Google is our. Yeah, that's one of your things. You do inspire more Google searches in the middle of a podcast than any person in the world.
Survey says he played at Wisconsin.
Yeah, all right. There you go. So yeah, former player, just maybe not in the NFL. I think he's McVay disciple, right? It's inevitable. He was the head coach for the preseason game. He gave him the chance to do that. I mean, going back to Washington with McVay, like it's only a matter of time. Seems like there's a lot of personality here. A well-diversified coach in terms of like the different roles that he's had coaching offense and defense. I think he's on that type of path. I think this is going to be one of those guys it's inevitable.
Was he the one that McVay turned the play calling over to for the preseason game?
He gave him the head coaching job this year. Yeah, he head coached a game. They beat the Chargers, if I'm not mistaken.
So yeah, I think that's a good call out for kind of coach development for a candidate.
So there's a bunch of names for you.
There you go. That's going to do it for the NFL coaches cycle 2024 or 2025. It's your primer in that regard. Trade deadline continuing to creep closer. We will react to that tomorrow here on the show. I'm Kyle Krabs. He is Joe Marino. We're Locked on NFL Scouting. We appreciate you guys. Check out the show. Make it a great rest of your day and come on back. See us again.